Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm your host, Justin Phillips, and with me, as always, is the Shadow Governor Voss.
Moment of silence. Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
And joining us on this extra special episode is the one and only JS Opinions.
What's up? Had to be here.
And we're talking about, of course, the biggest news of the week. Robin Voss, long-serving Speaker of the Wisconsin State Assembly, announced his retirement and will not seek re-election this fall. So, fellas, take it from me. Shadow Gov, your entire online persona is for him. So I'm going to give you the free reign to share your thoughts.
Well, the handle's going nowhere. The Robin Voss stand is staying. He might, people come and go, but, legacies never die. So I'm more than happy to represent even a small bit, my small corner of the internet, to stand the greatest speaker in Wisconsin history and maybe the most consequential Wisconsin politician. There's Wisconsin has a lot of consequential politicians. I was thinking a little bit about it today, and I know the libs were coping about all kinds of stuff, but I mean, Tommy Thompson, it's kind of hard to win that many governor races in a row, and that is an accomplishment that'll probably never ever be surpassed. So you think about that, and I hate to even mention Bob LaFollette, that progressive history long ago. I mean, the man still has a bust.
If I'm going to throw out mine, besides Tommy Thompson, besides Scott Walker, Joe McCarthy. Oh, a great American hero. Like Wisconsin has so many just huge people in political history. And I just think the speaker is going to be up there. And of course, the libs are not happy, or they are very happy, but they think, oh, his legacy's it's dead and gone. No one will ever remember him. And I just think they're going to be very wrong. So,
Shadow Gov, you might have to change your name to Shadow Governor Voss, because I don't think he's really leaving all that much, at least in the near future. The Dems are going to have to cope Max even further, except they won't even be able to go after Robin Voss directly anymore. They're going to have to probably go after him indirectly, but he is probably still going to be a huge influence in Wisconsin politics. But I do want to mention how much Robin Voss, at least since I have ever paid attention to Wisconsin politics, it means so much to us. Just because every single time we would be down in the dumps about some other thing, whether that's statewide or on the national level. But it was always these wins that would kind of keep us going, that would kind of still give us hope that, hey, we're gonna come out of this all right. And it is bittersweet, but I can't think of anyone more that deserves this than Robin Voss. The slack that he got from the Democrats his entire career, but the slack he got from the far right lunatics, I'll call them.
They're not even far right. They're just lunatics.
There's crackpots.
They're just lunatics. You're right. They're crackpots and they're crazy people. And he bore it like a champ. And he stuck with it. And I think he had mentioned in his farewell speech, which I had to listen to at least 4 times because it was so good, that he had a heart attack. And it, as you can imagine, that job's got to be pretty stressful. And I think he deserves this long break that he's going to get. He should go vacation in the Maldives and go travel the world, which I'm sure he will, but
and he should leave his phone at home when he does it.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
No need to look at the internet and the social media. We will. It's all right, brother. We've got the watch now.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. I tweeted the other day, if you viciously attack Robin on his retirement, I will viciously attack you. I don't care. I will be ruthless because he deserves it. He deserves to be in peace. I thought about, and this is how much how highly I value Robin and what he means to Wisconsin politics. I think about him as the George Washington of Wisconsin politics. I know people will think that's maybe a little too far, but I certainly
chat clip that.
And I just thought back to George Washington's farewell speech. And I actually had another tweet that kind of referenced the fig tree quote, about how George Washington finally gets to sit under the shade of the fig tree that he planted. And there's no one more that deserves that than Robin. And I wish him absolutely the best on retirement. And he'll still don't worry, Democrats, he will still reap havoc on your apparatus,
your psyche. And
guys are, he'll live rent free for 20 plus years. I mean,
there's still people out there online that still just Scott Walker, they'll still post pictures from like 2012 of just coping about Scott Walker winning the recall. It's like, guys, it was over a decade ago.
Like, and they act crazy about it too.
Yeah, they're like, oh, F Scott Walker, this F Scott. It's like, guy, what are you talking about? It's been years. Tony Evers is retiring. That's how long ago
they had 2 terms of Tony. But you're right. No, he took more arrows, I think, than he ever deserved from the crackpots on the right, and deflected just about every attack from the left. I mean, I still think about the time the press always pushed him on redistricting and setting up a redistricting committee. And he basically told them, when he's like, guys, no one cares about redistricting except the readers of the Wisconsin State Journal and whatever other trash left-wing publications that push that. And then there was the nihilist election conspiracy right that came for the king, and they missed, and he made them pay for it. He turned enemy legislators into backbench staffers. Yeah. He turned a Supreme Court justice into a disgrace to the legal community.
And that is his biggest mistake. He said that again in the interview. He's like, my biggest mistake.
But he stood his ground where whenever Evers tried to drag Wisconsin as far left as Illinois and Michigan and Minnesota, and other people could have easily given up some ground, but he never did. He never caved to the pressure from the left-wing media, or even pressure, quite frankly, from President Trump when he was going through it following 2020. And he kept his caucus together while doing it. I mean, he had between 54 and 64 members in the assembly, the Republican Assembly, and he held them together day in and day out. So it's just remarkable what he was capable of doing as the speaker, and being able to hold that job for as long time. Yeah, he deserves to sit under his fig tree.
And there's a lot to be said about leadership. And I know we kind of play up the whole moniker, the shadow governor, and it is true. Like, he knows everything. He knows every procedural rule motion. He knows he's a master negotiator. He knows what to say, when to say it. Great messenger. I mean, he's got all of the things they would want in a good politician, but a good leader as well. And people like to think that, he's been doing this for so long that people, I think, they certainly took it for granted that having 64 members or 60 members, or even the current, majority, which 54, making sure you get everybody on the same page is extremely difficult. People go to Thanksgiving and they can barely get their parents and their extended family on the same page. Quadruple that, 10x that. Okay. It is extremely difficult. And he's been doing it for so long. And obviously when you do it for so long, you command just kind of a natural respect, as a quote unquote elder or someone that's been doing this for a long time and had, a lot of wisdom on the issue. But I just think people severely have taken that for granted because, you look at the Democrats, and I know we're going to duck and weave here a lot. The Democrats, they don't have a leader, especially in the assembly. I think in the Senate minority leader, Dianne Hasselbein, is definitely a little bit more of someone that's probably ready for prime time. The assembly, though, a freshman legislator could be the speaker if the Democrats were to ever flip the chamber. I truly believe that there is a void of leadership in the Assembly Democrat caucus, so much so that anybody could challenge. I don't think Greta's commanded enough leadership, and I know she thinks that just because she's from Racine County that the leadership also rubs off from the speaker. But I just wish people and I know a lot of people listening probably do, just take a moment to realize how good we had it for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you said, I think the one thing Robin did well is, he could keep the caucus together, but then when certain members needed or wanted to take a no vote, they got to take their no vote. Like, that doesn't happen with the Democrats. If a Democrat member of the assembly wants to take a no vote, they get sent home.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that happened.
Right. And before you get in that, JS, like, you saw Shay Sortwell the other day was the one no vote on a piece of legislation, and people like Chuck Wickers and Scott Allen occasionally voted no, but they were allowed to. And Robin still held everyone else together, said, "You guys can do your thing. That's fine." And then, but there's rarely, if ever, any punishment for doing such a thing. It's like they weren't stripped of committees or anything. They stayed on, and the Democrats, they do otherwise. I mean, you look back to something like Foxconn, and the Democrats that voted in favor of Foxconn were stripped of committees. They kicked Peter Barca out of the their leadership because of it. Like, you talk about a dysfunctional body versus the one that functions so in lockstep and like a machine. It's Robin's control of the assembly majority.
Yeah, when I was listening to his speech, I was kind of thinking about how nihilistic I feel about Congress on the federal level, and just how I said it last time I was on the show that I think it's a pointless institution. But when I was listening to that speech, I think one thing that Robin makes very clear he's most proudest of is fighting tooth and nail to keep power in the legislature. Talk about Congress who has given away every single thing of its authority, and it basically has the power to do nothing except fight over dumb stuff. Robin Vos fought over and over again and made it his priority to keep the power in the legislature. And, he says in his speech, this is where democracy slows down. That's what the legislature's for. And I think that's so important because a lot of people, you'll hear the Dems talk, all the time, especially Greta. The will of the people is the law of the land. And to a certain extent, that's true. But these, when a group of people have an idea, we all know that sometimes that idea is not the best, right? And you have people that can sit there and spend their day looking at these pieces of legislation, how would it affect the various different parts, and then break that apart. And a lot of the times that results in something being slow, but that's a good thing. That's what our founders envisioned. But, you have the Democrats who have clawed all of that power back to the governor. And I think it's sad. A party that thinks that takes money from pedo Reid Hoffman, by the way, I just want to throw that in there. They have been clawing to give all of the power to the courts and to the governor. And they make a big deal because the legislature is controlled by Republicans. But think about it, Democrats. The power's in 99 people instead of 1 or 7. But they're fighting for the 1 in 7. And it kind of gave me hope for Wisconsin in the future because we do have a strong legislator. I mean, it's getting vastly worn away, but we still, because of Robin Vos, have a strong legislator. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to protect us from a federal government where Congress does keep giving away its power.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to say, I know we like to call the branches co-equal, and they are in principle. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, the legislature should be the most powerful. Mm. Yes. They are the most democratized body. Mm-hmm. It just, there is no talking around. And of course, if the Democrats held the legislature, they would say the same thing. But they've had unified control of the legislature like twice in 30 years. Okay. So they hate the legislature for the most part. And they love the governor because they have a better chance of winning those. But it is true. The power is quote unquote democratized in the legislature. And that's the way it was intended. And so in his farewell video, if you will, said that multiple times, and it's so true. And of course, with the Supreme Court as it is, of the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, they're trying to give those powers to the executive to be unchecked and unfettered. But still, I look at a lot of other states that have issues, and we think about Michigan's legislature flipped, a couple of years ago, and then Minnesota's flipped, and we never really had to worry about that here. Of course, it was always a concern, but it just seems like the steady hand always wins out. And so, I encourage everybody to obviously go and watch his 5-minute video.
We'll link to that in our show notes on our Substack page. We'll share that out.
And also watch the full. He did a floor speech.
Mm-hmm. That was about 15 minutes. Yeah, I remember.
And Dan O'Donnell posted that.
Yeah.
So that was. They said a lot of the same things, but obviously the floor speech. He was thanking staff. It's crazy to think that he had 80 staff that have worked for him.
Yeah. And he's had some that are fantastic people that have been there since he had some day one legislators. I remember, starting in the building, day one staffers. I remember starting in the building in 2013 and, meeting the people that worked for him. And, a couple of those people like had been with him since he was, his LA or RA when he was a rank and file member. Like they liked him that much, and he worked well enough with them and close enough with them that they wanted to stay. So there's definitely some people, if you look at those photos of who's turned over in his office and stuff, there's some people that have been there for quite a long time. And I think that speaks to his ability to, to manage and to have a good trust and a good working relationship with his staff. And that's rare. I mean, there's a handful of legislators that I've ever thought of that only had a couple. And I mean, people who stayed around for a decade or more that only had a few, but Robin, at having 80, I think is actually still small for the amount of, the amount of time he's been there. And
yeah, he had a lot of people that probably stayed on for a significant amount of time.
And, before that he was joint finance chair. And actually that's where I met him. So, I met him on Van Wangard's recall in 2012. And, I was still fairly new. I'd only worked in campaign politics because I graduated at a time when it was the 2010 cycle, then the 11 recalls, and then the 12 recalls, and that election cycle and the presidency. And I met him, and he'd come into the office and ask me how Van was doing, and great. And at that time, Jeff Fitzgerald, who's Scott Fitzgerald's younger brother, was the speaker who was running for U.S. Senate. And I looked at him, I was like, wow, Robin, you're like the most powerful Republican in the state right now. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, as I said that, I was like, wow, I sounded so stupid saying that. But I was 23, 24 years old. I was a young guy. And then, I started to work in the building, and, I knew right away he was like.
And that was before he became speaker.
Yeah. And he was one of like the sharpest political mind. I think he always saw the full chessboard better than just about anyone. And he had this long-term vision for how to win back seats and to campaign and, to pass that legislation. And as a Capitol staffer, I didn't always love him, quite frankly. I had my share of frustrating meetings where I had a bill on the floor and he calls my boss and I in and says, we can't pass this. And I was like, no, it's on the schedule. I was like, it went through committee unanimously. He's like, well, someone doesn't want it. And he kind of went into the backstory. But the fact was, he was open about it. He told the truth. He was honest. He didn't like lie or spin things. He just said, we can't pass it as is, and we had to do an amendment. So there's a floor amendment. It was a thing. And, there's another time where, we did a big bill on election stuff. And again, this was 2013, 2014. And, getting called into his office, and I never know what that's going to be like. He says, we're going to do this giant amendment. And then my boss is like, I don't want to do that. And so we had to like have this hammer out this thing. And then I think that was one of the few times Robin testified on a bill as the speaker. So he came into the elections committee and testified about the bill, and took all of the heat that my boss had at that time away from him and onto Robin. And, again, that's the type of guy he was too. If he wanted to get it done, he stood up. He was the first guy to take those arrows and help out a fellow member of the legislature. And, I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. One of the other stories, if I may, 2014, I was working for Scott Krug on his campaign. And this speaks volumes about, again, Robin and Scott Krug, in that Scott Krug went from one of the Dems' biggest targets to a safe, member of the leadership of the assembly. Like, speaks to how far he's come. And again, Robin's someone that helped that along. But Scott was doing so well in that race, they moved me to a guy named Mark Elliott. And Mark Elliott was running against Gordon Hintz. And if you know anything about the backstory there,
oh yeah,
Robin wanted to take out Gordon Hintz, and he sent me over there, and I busted my ass. Like, we knocked doors all the time. You know, like we worked our butt off to get that race locked up, and it didn't happen, but it was damn close. And I just want to tell Robin, if he listens, I don't know if he does. I'm
Maybe
sorry.
He'll listen to this episode.
I'm sorry we didn't get that one across the finish line, but tremendous respect for his entire career, and thank him for everything he's done for the Republican Party of Wisconsin and keeping the assembly majority.
It is bittersweet, but
it's mainly bitter.
Yes, it is bitter. But I will say this: the Dems, I get kind of sad about it. But then I look to see these reactions by some of these Democrats, and it then just immediately brings me back to pure joy of how much he still lives rent free in their head, and also how much they think he's going to win, or how much they think Democrats are going to win now that he's gone. But I think they're in for a rude awakening, which will make the whole situation so much better, because if you look at the campaign apparatus behind the assembly, I mean, that thing is, self-runs at this point. So Dems are still going to have their work cut out for them. I get they think this is like a favorable election year, but Robin, from what I saw in a few different outlets,
that's Mr. Speaker to you.
Is still going to be helping out with RAC, in which case the Democrats stand no chance. So they can cope about it further, and they can continue to cope max.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of cope maxing going on, but I wanted to I know this is kind of like a reminiscing or kind of a looking back, and Mr. Speaker, if you're listening, we do want to have you on the pod eventually, if you are listening, or if someone's listening that knows the speaker. Because I just would love to pick his brain, because we're quote unquote young people, and kind of got into this, whole thing as an interest while he was speaker. I'm not someone that was into politics in 2004 when he came into the legislature. And obviously he was working in politics before. He was county supervisor. He was working as an aide, before then. How did he pick up things? What developed his style for speaking, negotiating, doing media, and then also the ebb and flows to think about 2004 politics to 2026 politics, light years different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about, Bush v. Gore, the Iraq war, to
dial-up internet.
Yeah, Trump talking about aliens. So it's just, and how do you manage that landscape? How do you ebb and flow? And there's so many questions. It's almost overwhelming. I feel like I would have to write them down, not to be like, what's your favorite color? No, I would be like, how do you meticulously plan out going after Democrats or, going after opponents? I have so many questions, and he is a, and being the speaker and in the legislature, being now retired, he can probably talk about some of that now. He's not necessarily, I'm always playing the next step. I can't let people know my next step. Mm-hmm. Well, his next step is going to be hopefully a vacation. So maybe he can,
maybe a Senate run. We're still
fingers crossed. True. Yeah,
that would be. I mean, I think he should just be installed as like the dictator of Wisconsin.
No. All I'm saying,
I would fight in a war over that.
All I'm saying is April Fool's an announcement video for state senate would be really fun.
Well, but if that's a great point you bring up, because that is kind of what he did to Democrats, like on a daily basis.
Yeah, he kept them on their toes.
Believe something, and then all of a sudden it would just flip like that, and then they would be left just not knowing what to do. And Greta has, I mean, how many times has Greta looked like a clown on the floor because of him? And he would just do that every day. It came natural to the point where they would just do it to themselves.
See, at least Gordon Hintz, I think, was a mutual, adversary, where like
that was personal though. That was
well, yes, it was personal.
Yeah,
but I think as far as like tactics and using the tools at your disposal, even with a smaller minority, I think he was quote unquote more on par. Now maybe that just came with experience, and Greta's last name is just Neubauer, so
well, and the thing is Robin's opponent, because the Democrats were such an easy opponent for Democrats, or for Robin Vos, the real not enemy, I wouldn't even call it an enemy, but the worst opponent of Robin Vos usually was just the Senate. And it was almost, it felt like to me that the Senate was kind of always jealous of Robin, and just the fact that
limelight.
Like everything was just so smooth. And in the Senate, everyone's so, they kind of just do what they want, and they like to be independent. And, I think they hated Robin because of that,
Well, Robin also had an incredible skill.
That's Mr. Speaker to you.
For sending the problem children of the assembly to the Senate. Like the ones that they're always kind of foils to him, or, they got Senate. They somehow ended up in the Senate.
Makes things easier.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I think he should just write like a manual.
Yeah.
Like just write a manual, write a book.
Top 10 rules for patriots.
I sometimes, like I was thinking about last night, if I could just sit down with him and pick his brain, just like all these different scenarios and situations that I remember seeing, and just asking him like, what was his mindset on that, and I mean, it should be written down, quite frankly. Like
someone needs to do the biography, and I'm saying that it might. Yes. I would volunteer
and title it "How to Win a Republican Majority."
Yes,
the first novel. There'll be many volumes.
You're going to be the Robert Caro to his LBJ.
Like it's an unhealthy. Like I understand. I might get a lot of flack online for, you're staining Robin Vos. How could you ever do that? And I'm like, yeah, the man knows everything. How do you like? If you watch the speech that he gave, the floor speech, there were a lot of Democrats that stood up and clapped, standing ovation. I know they maybe some gritted their teeth. There were some that stood down, and they will be dealt with.
They should be put on a list.
It was pretty easy. I'm pretty sure it's just the entire Socialist Caucus. So
right, put them on a list. Put them on a list. Put it in for later, for when Robin takes control of the Wisconsin.
Add those skulls to his throne.
Yeah. Yes. But there were some Democrats that stood up and applauded, because I think at the very least, regardless of like the politics, you could hate his policies, but he's done something that I don't know if anyone can replicate. So that achievement alone, and I don't say this, but this is the most genuine. I'll say this. I appreciated Tony Evers' statement on the speaker. It was very nice. There was only one slight phrase that I could have interpreted as slight knife twist. But other than, I mean, come on, this is politics after all. It's come to be expected. But it was very nice, and I was like, you know what? It kind of just encapsulated the kind of bittersweet. If the Socialist Caucus wants to, he destroyed Wisconsin. Okay, fine, whatever. You can believe that, but it was just kind of nice to have one day where some people from both sides of the aisle could come together to recognize the outstanding achievements, or the just the feat of being speaker, being in public service that long. So it was certainly bittersweet, and it was very nice from Evers, and I did appreciate that.
And you know who else had a really gracious statement? And we're talking about Dems that make gracious statements, because I don't know if you saw that Kelda Royce put out a tweet, which was the two fingers peace symbol, which I think also represents the amount of support she had in that latest Democrat poll that hopefully we'll talk to in a little bit. But
I mean, like I said, few Democrats, DPW chair, Devin Remiker, or however you say his name.
He was someone had a little spat with him.
Who pays for his food that he eats every day with pedo money from Reid Hoffman, put out a very, very insulting statement. And, he's obviously coping. He's trying to mimic Donald Trump, which only makes him look more stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, I mean, it was a very just annoying thing to say. And I tweeted, like, obviously jokingly, he should get life in prison for that. Although, yeah, like, it's just, why would you even do that? Why do you waste the time?
I mean,
but I would say the one person who, again, put out a very gracious statement was Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson. And he said when I was elected mayor, I immediately knew that I had to create a better relationship with state government, and that, include Robin Voss. He said he had, of course, kind of I had several disagreements with Robin on a range of issues, but I came to respect. He was always straightforward in our conversations, whether I liked it or not. He always kept his word. So, that's the gracious statement that a Democrat should be putting out at this time.
And Crowley did too.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with Crowley is he's also running for a Democrat position.
Yeah, but Crowley, again, I think that's a longer term play than the double middles, or the Kelderoy's statement, or the lack of anything from Francesca, who went again radio silent.
Well, to be fair, it's
a snotty brat.
Probably best that she just didn't say anything, because she probably would have said something that could have ended her up in a penitentiary, probably. Like, she disliked him that much.
Irrelevant in like a month.
What was it? Repeat that.
She's going to be irrelevant in like a month because she's going to lose her election because she's crazy.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty.
You think she'll win governor?
I don't think she's necessarily going to win, but I think she's going to be sticking around.
Well, there was someone that actually declared for her seat, so I don't know if that's
something.
Oh, I saw a name declares for the seat that she's running for. I didn't actually.
Her?
I don't know.
Yeah,
them.
We're not sure. I don't think that's going to be confirmed.
I'll have to do a bit more research on that.
Yes, I believe the Adam's apple might be a good place to check. One thing I did want to say though, obviously we're having kind of a night. Like, I love this kind of reminiscing and stuff. But I wanted to first reminisce for a moment on why I even started this, and second of all, on the Democrats and the detractors. For anyone that didn't listen to the pilot, I was not a Robin Voss stan to begin with. I actually, I was always conservative, always, kind of loosely paid attention, but never really paid all that much attention until the late, teens. And I just remember hearing about stuff going on in the legislature. And of course, it was the media bashing the speaker. And so I'm just like, oh, they're bashing it. I'm like, oh, it sounds like he's doing some horrible stuff. And, because I was an NPC or just didn't pay attention. And then lo and behold, the more I looked into it and actually dug into the things he was doing and advocating for, I'm like, wow, this guy's doing the stuff. And of course, at that time, I wasn't quote unquote standing anyone. And, this is getting really into the internet lore, but, on election Twitter, as you will, there are a lot of people that are anonymous and they'll stand different politicians they like. And I'm like, hey, Robin Voss needs a stand. All I see are hate comments. Someone's got to fill the gap. So thus the Twitter account was born. But speaking of those detractors that I relentlessly harassed on Twitter, and now I just mute most of them because they're not worth my time. Adrian Melby.
And they got proven wrong in the 2024 election.
Yeah. But
which is the best part about it all.
There are so many. I screenshot a ton. All these tweets. Oh, I hope he enjoys retirement. Wisconsin's worse off because of him. The Democrat Party of Wisconsin comms people tweeting out the picture of like the guy with his hands being unchained or whatever. Like, this is all they have. They have nothing. They can only rejoice in the fact that he's gone. Okay, not because they beat him, but because they lost and he chose. You know what? I'm going to hang it up. They could say, "Oh, he sees the writing on the wall." No, he chose when he wanted. He could have. And you know what? The funny thing is he said on his little floor speech, until November, he was still thinking about running. And he probably, I bet he would be running for re-election if he hadn't had the heart attack. And that's kind of like a literal divine intervention, probably.
Yeah.
And so I want all the Democrats listening that you did not beat him. And you never beat him. And sure, maybe you had one procedural thing that you flipped on for a moment. But guess what? Who always won out in the end? Okay? You didn't. Okay? And so the fact that he went out on his own term will bite you for the rest of your days, that you could never, you could never foil him. He was unflappable. Okay? And so the Democrats hate that. So they are quite literally cope maxing. They got Bill mogged, frame maxed.
Chess 4D chess maxed.
4D chess maxed. I mean, there's literally nothing that they can do to change that. And I hope Robin he can think back on that and always know that, maybe he thinks, oh, I wish I could have done this or that. But, victory is, pretty sweet. And so when you're detractors, all they can say is, bye-bye, okay, I'll see you later. I mean, he's still going to be, he's what, 58 or something, 57? I mean, he could still be very much involved in Republican politics if he wants to.
Yeah, Shadow. I was just thinking about how, as you had mentioned, the detractors thing, how I remember spending so much time on X/Twitter going at these people, and their lack of knowledge on anything in reality. But I felt like I was like in the social media trenches, which Robin was actually in the trenches. So like, I'm not trying to necessarily equate that, but I would absolutely go at every single person. And I continually am. Democrats that want to comment on Robin Voss's retirement in a annoying way. But when that whole thing went down, it felt like a civil war, and it felt like every night was just some new thing that we had to like fight back against. And Robin would always come up on top. And it's things like that I think about when Democrats sit there and rejoice, because they've tried to take him down from so many different angles, whether that was from the left or the right, and they never did. I mean, I think if anyone, I will vote for anyone and endorse anyone if they commit to putting up a Robin Voss statue on that pride flag in Madison. That's where it's going, right on top of that pride flag.
Lady forward, move over.
Yeah, honestly, let's get rid of that. Robin Voss was way better.
Lady forward's great and all, but it's so leftist coded.
Yes.
It's 100%. So leftist coded, and it bothers me. But yes, and it is funny. I did put it out there because Dan Schaefer was talking about the legacy of the speaker. And I was like, the man is going to have a painting, a statue, a bust, or he's going to have his name will be on something, and yours will not be. His legacy will live on, yours will not. Okay.
Yeah, this to draw on a sports reference, and because like I think we all kind of agree that Robin is going to leave such a large void in the lives of so many liberals and so many of those crackpot Adrian Melby quote unquote conservatives or far right kooks.
They're not even far.
I know.
They're just lunatics.
Yeah, that
he isn't on the planet anymore. Her spirit came out of her body and turned into a ball, a golden ball, and shot up into the sky. And now she no longer exists because her entire existence was based on hating.
True.
Yeah, but this isn't. You said this isn't. Like the sports analogy. This isn't Brett Favre, who hung on too long, and ended his career on a sour note. This is Nolan Ryan, who ended his career as strong as it started. All right, so fellas, I don't know if you heard the other news that took place this week in Madison. There was an announcement of a $40 million dementia village, which will include a restaurant, spa, and grocery store, and housing for caretakers, which, after watching Tony Evers' State of the State, I know he will be resident number one.
Honestly, I would go there. It sounds pretty nice, actually.
I mean, I saw WKOW's best headline, which is Governor Evers calls for bipartisanship and attacks Republicans in final state of the state address.
10 out of 10, no notes, best headline of the night.
Governor Evers went out the same way he came in, by asking Wisconsin lawmakers for a bunch of stuff that will never happen because of Robin Vos.
So I love that we can tie everything into the speaker just because he deserves it. But so yes, of course, the state of the state, Tony being the lame duck that he is, he can't do anything besides give a speech where he takes credit for everything, accepts no responsibility for the bad things, and then, fluffs it up with something about his legacy. But I would like to just say that Tony didn't focus at all. He was stumbling over himself because he knew that he was getting brutally speech mugged by the shadow maxing governor himself, thus spiking irreversible cortisol levels.
Yes, terminal cortisol levels.
Well, Tony has been jester gooning for 8 years. Our frame-mogging frat leader has always been in control. And for all those that just developed severe autism from listening to that, that is what the young people are that's how they're talking these days.
The near 40-year-old on the mic here does not know what any of those words mean.
Yes. This is my whole vocabulary with my friends these days.
I need a Chrome extension.
These memes.
I need a Chrome extension that just turns everything I read into this jargon. So basically, long story short, the translation is the speaker was just staring a hole into the back of Tony Evers' head during a speech, and then he was causing him to. Yeah, well, you have to use. Okay, we can't use all of the language because some people don't understand it. JS online.
Yes, but people that do understand it, which are the cool people.
That is true,
or farming.
There was a lot said. Of course, apparently this was Tony Evers' longest stay of the state, mainly because he's had 8 years to take credit for the Republican GOP budget. Funny how this works. Voters have the memory of a guppy, and so usually they don't remember what he proposed in his budget to then from the state of the state to the budget, and then the budget to the next year. So a lot of things get missed, and Tony Evers consistently proposed massive budgets, massive spending, giving illegals driver's licenses, calling women inseminated persons, you name it, they did it. That all got stripped out, and the Republican legislature saved him from his worst intentions. But of course, now that he's coming out the door, look at all these beautiful tax cuts I signed. Look at all this beautiful stuff that I just came in and wrote my name on at the last second and had nothing else to do with it. And that was pretty much like 20 minutes of the speech. And that could sum it up pretty well. The rest of the speech was a little bit mixed. That was when the quote unquote attacking happened. But most of the speech was just Tony just basically taking victory laps. And of course, my favorite, the Democrat lawmakers clapping like trained circus seals for bills they voted against. Oh, look at all this beautiful stuff we got in the budget. Most of them voted against it. So this is just, again, this is politics. Would I be doing the same thing? Yes. But okay, the shoe's on the other foot. So yeah, I'm going to call it out.
And Tony Evers isn't Robin Vos. So if Robin Vos was up on that stage saying that, I would clap like a seal easily. I'm not even going to think, because I know that
Thank you, Chairman Vos. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Vos.
Long live the Republic.
It'll be that one meme of when Kim Jong-un raises his hand and then everyone else raises their hand at the exact same time. It's like a crowd of 300 people. That would happily be me.
Long live the Dairyland Republic.
Yes.
No, but there's a couple things in that speech that I kind of want to talk about, or just stuff that he, has kind of always been on, is that, public schools and funding public schools. And a couple of things I want to talk about that is, first is Wisconsin funds its public schools at record levels, yet outcomes have continued to drop. Less than 1 in 3 of our kids can read at grade level, and the education governor vetoed legislation to raise academic standards. He hasn't called out Dr. Jill Enderle, quote, for her terrible management of the Department of Public Instruction. And Democrats and Tony Evers care so little about Black achievement in the state, it's borderline racist. So WNC had this post a couple days ago on Twitter that says, since 2000, for every 8 students lost, public school added 1 non-instructional staff member. More adults than ever, and fewer kids reading and doing math at grade level. That's not the year of our kid. That's decades of growing a bloated bureaucracy. So seriously, enrollment in public education in Wisconsin has dropped by 65,000, but 8,000 non-instructional staff have been added while we've lost 2,700 students. So hopefully Tom Tiffany wins the governorship this fall, and we can look under the hood at where these school districts are spending their money. So that's one thing. The other thing that really stuck out to me is the way Evers talked about joining the World Health Organization's Global Response Network. So
gay.
So he posted this thing that said, folks, public health isn't a partisan issue, and it isn't up for debate. And so that's why he announced that he's joining the Global Response Network. And, I really, really hate the it isn't up for debate thing. Like, it turns out when the left tries to shut down or claim a debate is settled, it's almost certainly that is the one thing that needs to be debated. It's a slogan in the form of rhetorical bullying. Its a single purpose is to create the illusion of certitude in order to preempt any meaningful debate. And Tony Evers has refused to turn over information about our SNAP benefits to the federal government, but he's willing to turn over our health records to the CCP-run World Health Organization. Again, it shows where the liberal mindset is on this.
And they love China. The Democrats love China, as well as they love child eating, possibly child eating, pedophilia, Reid Hoffman, which is where they get all of their money, and they will not give it back because they love Communist Party China and Reid Hoffman, the child eating predator,
and hate Black students.
Yes, and hate Black students.
That might be an all-time clip that as well, Chad. Second of all, one thing that he also said, and of course, because he's a lame duck, he can't really propose anything major, but he said that they allocated some money to do a PSA with the Bucks regarding domestic violence. And it's like, hey guys, have you ever heard of Kevin Porter Jr.?
Let's partner with
literal domestic.
That are 38% more likely to commit domestic violence than the average American. Let's partner with that organization to stop domestic violence.
Yeah,
please.
And it's funny because Twitter was blowing up with it. Like, now the funny thing is at first I was like, this is a throwaway tweet from the governor. I didn't really think much from like, oh, okay, he has no power. This is kind of just we're doing something. And then NBA Twitter got a hold of the post and everyone was like, does he know? and of course, I think it was kind of funny because NBA Twitter was all over it, but the politics side, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not much of an NBA person anymore. Over the years, I've just lost interest. And so I'm not following up on it. So I didn't even really notice it until I saw this. So kind of ironic, that they're partnering with the Bucks and, the NBA's got some problems with domestic violence itself. One thing, though, I think that we will all have comments on was probably the biggest takeaway, I think, from the state of the state was Evers calling a special session on partisan gerrymandering. And he wants to pass a constitutional amendment that, quote unquote, bans partisan gerrymandering.
It's only partisan gerrymandering when the Republicans do it. When it's the Democrats do it, it's fair maps.
Of course.
Drawn by Eric Holder and funded by liberal pedophile Reid Hoffman.
Yeah,
exactly. Thank you.
And Arabella Advisors and George Soros and every other,
they're all pedophiles that fund the Wisconsin Democratic Party. And if you vote for them, you are, I'm not going to say complicit, but kind of complicit.
Allegedly.
In child trafficking.
Allegedly.
Parody. We're all laughing.
Can our legal team check with that statement to make sure that we can't get sued for that? Yeah, so the Democrats, I do think this is kind of like a Tony Evers. I think Tony Evers, if he had another session or another term, he would maybe one chamber. I bet they would push for a nonpartisan redistricting commission.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I do think, because I think the writing is on the wall that regardless of how the maps look, who draws them, the math is just very hard for Democrats to get 55 Democrats. Like, these are Tony Evers maps that the Assembly and State Senate operate under, and it's tough. It is a slog, but let's be honest, they need some insulation between the Socialist Caucus, between the regular Democrat rank and files, and some of the moderates. They need a buffer, and they were going to have to do some pinwheels, pizza pieing Dane County and Milwaukee County to get those margins. And I think the only way you can do that is with an independent, quote unquote, air quotes, partisan commission that would potentially do their dirty work for them. Oh, this is a nonpartisan entity. Well, we'll just accept their maps. So I do think that's kind of the ploy. And of course, the special session is going nowhere.
They always do. I mean, this is a tactic. That's the one bullet in the chamber for the governor when he wants to get legislation across, is to call a special session. And of course, the Republican, again, this would happen if it was a Democrat governor and a Republican legislature. This would happen if it was a Republican governor and a Democrat legislature. They gavel in, gavel out, and do something else. And that's how it's supposed to be. Like, again, I think Robin was always right when he said the only people that really care about partisan redistricting are left-wing media types and the, terminally online political left. The average person, let's be honest, the average person can't name their congressman, let alone their state senator or their state assemblyman. They just want to know if they have a Republican majority or not. And everything else would be secondary. So, fellas, I know the speaker's retirement announcement took up a lot of the energy and a lot of the column inches in the news, but we did end the legislative session actually a few hours ago from when we're recording this on Friday. And over the past couple of days, there's been a lot of really interesting bills that passed through the assembly and stuff that we should talk about. Now, I, for one, am salivating already at the idea of to eat a sandhill crane, allegedly the ribeye of the sky. So I'm already hungry, even though that was tacked on to the wakeboarding bill, and then there was the casino expansion of gaming bill that I know we've had Dan Leddington talk about that in a recent episode. Go back and check that out. But fellas, give me some highlights that the folks need to know about from this last legislative session.
Well, real quickly, I just wanted to say I would love nothing more than a sandhill crane so that Oconomowoc PD doesn't just have to be the only one that's killing them, so that other people can shoot them for game. But I did see a headline that a state senator said that it's dead. So,
like the sandhill cranes need to be.
Yes.
I mean, they're a nuisance animal. Let's be clear. Like, they're not some majestic bird.
I'm not going to pretend to be like somehow vastly invested in this bill. However, having never tried something like the sandhill crane, I think would be nice, or do a sandhill crane hunt. I wouldn't mind that. But so yeah, that's unfortunately probably dead. But yeah, there was a lot of other, I checked Wisconsin Eye just a couple hours ago, and they were kept on going. So it's been a long, tumultuous couple days here.
And I'm looking at pictures right now from Jessica McBride at Wisconsin Right Now posting. It's apparently riveting for the members of the Democrat caucus, especially Margaret Arney, who is just sitting there knitting while her colleagues go on about PFAS and other nonsense. Can't think of a better thing to do on the floor than knit. But JS, give us your opinion. What's a bill you want to talk about and highlight?
Well, I think that we haven't been talking about. I think it's totally absurd that we stopped talking about Robin Vos. So I'll bring up the bill mogging that happened, even though it was actually a courageous band of Republican legislators, 8 of them, that got Robin down. They cut him down to get Medicaid expansion passed because they are just that amazing. That's how awesome they are to get Medicaid, postpartum Medicaid expansion, and this women's health bill that had to do with dense breasts or sorry, I don't know why I was.
No, three adult men talking about breast screening. I know it's breast cancer, but so, we get it. We can get our giggles in.
Yes, but no, it is a serious issue where apparently there is more dense tissue and it's harder to read when there's potential cancer. So the bill would just essentially require that health insurers have to have additional coverage for this specific issue, which seems pretty harmless on the outset. But of course, there are the principles of mandating private companies to do certain things, especially healthcare companies, and maybe the precedent that sets. But I think when you look at some of the merits, the pros and the cons, you have to think that the pros outweigh the cons here. And apparently a number of other states already do this. So Wisconsin would just join a lot of other states. And I don't think there's been a massive, healthcare costs have gone up. Yes. But I don't think that this is the straw that broke the camel's back per se.
Right. The best part about it is it made Greta Neubauer look stupid. And it was because before this, I had saw on Twitter that the Democrats were stalling session by attaching these amendments to all of these bills, and just nothing could get done. And they were all the postpartum bill and this Gale's Law bill. And what they did is something like that I like to explain as bill mogging. They bill mogged them, which means they undercut the Democrats and made all of them look stupid for being obstructionists when, like I said, a courageous band of swing seat legislators got together. And this was the one time they got Robin to cave. But sucks for Democrats because now they're going to lose the majority, or will never win the majority, and Greta Neubauer will never be speaker.
Well, even if the Democrats were to take the assembly, she would never be speaker. And I just want to make that she's not a good leader. She doesn't have the confidence of the caucus, and she's also probably not the right complexion. She is the right gender, but maybe not the right sexuality is either.
Well, she's a part of the LGBTQ caucus.
Well, she's also married to a man and has now announced that she's pregnant, apparently, as well. But
very Kelderoy's like.
Yes. So yes, similar track. Now, although Greta I don't think is going to announce for governor. One thing though, if in the lead up to the nonsense that has happened the last couple of days, the Democrats, in their defense, had a pretty good message going on. They were harping on postpartum. They were harping on breast cancer screening. They were saying Republicans are bad. They're not going to pass this. We need to do extra work. Tony Evers in his State of the State said we need to stick around and pass these bills. And it was all kind of a unified push. And you know what? They wanted the Assembly and the State Senate to not pass these bills. I think, well, of course they wanted them to pass, but I really do think they wanted it as a wedge issue.
Oh, absolutely.
And they were blowing this up to be the huge wedge issue that you are voting against women, or you're voting against new moms and people with cancer. Not a bad political strategy, if if you ask me.
The Democrats do this at every level of government. Like they had plenty of opportunities at the federal level to solve the immigration crisis with border control and some sort of amnesty program. Call it what you. They never did it because they knew it was a campaign issue that they could win on. This is the same here. The Democrats thought, Greta Neubauer thought they could play the war on women card that they've been trying to pull since 2012 and keep this as a wedge issue. But the Republicans, again, Robin Voss's brilliance, turned that into past legislation that Republicans voted on near unanimously.
And one thing that I think is very important is the press conference that the courageous group of legislators gave. And I think one of the most interesting comments came from Representative Pat Snyder, who was the lead author for the postpartum extension bill. And he was pissed, needless to say. And he basically came right out the gate and said, I've been working on this for well over a year, trying to get this and having back and forth discussions with the speaker. And then the Democrats come in the ninth hour proposing all these amendments, trying to muck things up, and it almost jeopardizes the bill. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of shows that the people that were actually doing the work were successful in the end. Mm-hmm. And the Democrats like Dan Schaefer, I know Dan Schaefer lives rent-free in my head. I'll fully admit that. But he was saying that, and not just him, among a number of other Democrats, this is a great win for Greta Neubauer. Just a reality check. Greta Neubauer has zero power. She has zero ability to bring anything to the floor. Okay? She thinks she can try, but she can't. And what they did was nothing more than an annoyance. Okay? Based off of the things that we know in the videos that we've seen, the press conferences, these talks have been going on for a very long time. Of course, there's the end of session. You know, as the speaker said, deadlines tend to make people move and make decisions. This is not something the Democrats caused. The Democrats wanted this to fail so that they had the wedge issue that they thought would flip the assembly.
Yep, that's where they would get their votes, is with those moderate, independent, suburban women that have tracked towards the left over the past couple of cycles because of Trump. It was a whole thing that they probably tried to put together, and it failed again because Robin Vos saw the entire chessboard and knew the game to play.
Yes, and that's why I think it wasn't that Brett Favre last game throws a pick. It was like the exact opposite. It's like if Brett Favre won the Super Bowl that year, although that would have been horrible because it was the Vikings. But for the sake of argument, it would have been like that. And this now, I mean, this is going to play super well in these swing districts. And it's already, I mean, I get Dems think it's a favorable year, but at the end of the day, it's really easy to separate national politics from local politics. And if you can go to the voters and show them this is exactly what I did, mm-hmm. It is going to go so much further. People are willing to split their ticket.
And every vulnerable legislative Republican can go and say, I stood up for women for these reasons. It's right there. I mean, it's just a soft, a meatball over the middle. That's an easy win for them that they now have that the Democrats didn't want them to get.
And what are the Democrats going to say? Oh, I always supported this, and mm-hmm. It got signed.
Yeah,
by with the help of Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, fantastic. We got to win. They got to win. We the Republicans that need to use this, they should use this as much as possible. It's because I mean, genuinely, I do think it's, whether you think it's good or bad policy, I do think that it's probably the right thing to do. And but that being said, there were some people though that apparently didn't think it was the right thing to do because they weren't even in the assembly. You know, this was the last session, hypothetically, and we had a number of missing people. JS Online, did you pick up on that?
Oh, I picked up on that. And what I had thought is that Reid Hoffman invited them to the private island that
allegedly
alleged private island. We don't know if it exists. What do we know? What do we know?
Probably
it's a hoax. What do we know? All I'm saying is the Democratic Party took $15 million from alleged child trafficker. However, besides that point, that is probably where they were. But what the reality is this is what Democrats do all the time. I can remember back when I was a lot more online during the redistricting battle, and they actually kicked out Sylvia Ortiz-Velez, who now is no longer a part of that Democratic caucus. Imagine if she'd made that decision back then, how different things would be. But they did that. And I actually saw a tweet, I think it was from AJ Bayampour, but it was Nate Gustafson actually, or it was Shea Sorwell or Shadow. Do you want to explain that? Because I think you know a little bit better than me.
Yeah. So, well, there's a couple things. So first of all, it sounds like, because obviously the days are starting to blur together because of how much the assembly has been in session, as well as, the state Senate was in session as well, where there was 3 Democrats that were missing: Representative Spouty, Representative Doyle, and Representative Emerson. Conveniently, those are all in 3 very competitive districts, and they are incumbents. They missed a couple votes, a couple very important votes, including postpartum and the breast cancer screening bill. And why the reason I think that they weren't there, because I think they would say they support those regardless, is the constitutional amendment that reins in the governor's ability to use the line item veto to raise taxes. This is a constitutional amendment that'll go to the voters. And if we're reading the tea leaves, the 400-year veto is going to be a problem for Democrats in November. And if you have 3 Democrats saying they basically reaffirm the 400-year veto,
that's a tough vote to take.
That's a tough vote to take. And if I'm a hack, and I am a hack, the smart thing to do for them is to have them not vote. It really is. However, the optics of taking them off the floor and not voting for other stuff, it's not a great look, especially if that's highlighted. And I think we should definitely highlight it. Now, fast forward, though, to the quote-unquote, or I shouldn't say quote-unquote, the Representative Sortwell situation. Representative Sortwell, and he said on the floor that he saw the Democrat representative who represents Sheboygan area, Representative Sheehan, leaving the assembly chambers as he was going in, and then noticed that they were saying that he was going to be gone for the rest of the session. And he thought that was weird. And of course, there were some bills coming up on the schedule that he voted for in committee that were going to be on the floor. And he made the allegation that the Democrats didn't want him to vote for them on the floor, so they sent him home. And that's where it stemmed into this kind of back and forth. Representative Billings, quote unquote, a moderate Democrat, basically totally threw him under the bus and said this is despicable that he would even suggest that. And then Representative Gustafson came in with the absolute truth nuke, and something that does not happen very often on this on the floor of the legislature, asked Representative Sylvia Ortiz Velez if she would yield to a question, which she did. And he essentially asked her, have you ever been told to leave because of, a vote? And she said yes. And basically blew up the Democrats' entire narrative. So take that as you will.
Yes, it was just Democrats have to be demoralized. I hope they're demoralized. I know the DPW chair who lives off of pedophile money and
makes his own IPAs.
Yes, that's right. Which I'm pretty sure Jeffrey Epstein did too. But I get that he's all high and mighty right now, but he should be feeling absolutely demoralized. And so do the rest of the Democrats, because they got bill mogged. They got every single mog you could possibly do in a single legislative session. And I mean, again, that just goes back to Robin Vos and how he kind of went out with a bang. And, I think he'll still continue to live rent-free. He will still haunt them for the rest of their lives, hopefully. At least I'm going to try and make sure that they are haunted by Robin Vos for the rest of their lives.
And one last thing I want to say on that is that statement from the DPW chair. This is going to sound corny, but it did kind of fire me up. I'm like, oof. All right, those are fighting words. Ben Wickler, he was a little bit different. He would be strongly worded, but it was a little bit more diplomatic. This is not quite diplomatic. And maybe that's the quote, the change in leadership is slightly, Ben Wickler's young, but this guy I think is even younger. I think he's probably,
Well, he's not smart enough. He's not smart enough to know when to be diplomatic. So he's got to be a bit younger.
I mean, if you're the Democrat Party chair, though, should you be saying nice things about Speaker?
Yeah,
probably
your
not.
Base doesn't want you to do that.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, so I do get it, but I did see this, and I'm like, there was a little bit of personal to this, and so I took it a little bit personal myself.
Me too.
And we'll see. We'll maybe use that for a little motivation.
Yeah. Screenshot his name, send it to Palantir. Make sure we remember that down the line. Life in prison, like I said,
or maybe just beating him soundly in the Assembly, in the state Senate, and at the governor's race.
But Shadow, do you want to? There's one bill that was passed on Friday that I think you really took a lot of interest in. Do you want to just give us a little taste of Adam Nayland's bill?
5 seconds, because I know we're running long here, but it's hard not to with the topic of Speaker Voss. All right, sorry, I just had to tie it right back into Speaker Voss real quick. Thank you, Speaker Voss, for allowing the crypto bill, Representative Nayland's crypto bill, to go forward. Yeah, I tweeted this out, earlier. I'm not one to be like personally invested in like a particular bill. There's hundreds of bills out there, and most of them very niche. Most people don't think twice about them. But this crypto bill, I have a healthy crypto portfolio. It's not crazy. I'm not going to be able to retire or anything, but it does all right. And obviously crypto's kind of taken a crap recently, but there's one thing that crypto allows you to do is stake your crypto. And without getting into it, essentially would act like it's interest on your savings account. You put up your crypto as kind of collateral. No, it's not collateral, but you would earn interest on your crypto. Mm-hmm. And Wisconsin didn't allow that. The Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions basically didn't allow that. And so I had to unstake my crypto, and I wasn't earning any interest. And this bill essentially just reverses that. And it just allows a little bit of residual income. And it's like 4 or 5%. So if you do 4 or 5% on a healthy amount, I mean, it's not an insignificant amount of money. It's not like a ton, but certainly more than your standard savings account. So thank you to Representative Nayland for getting that done. And thank you, Speaker Voss, for allowing that to be put on the floor as well.
Oh, yeah. I knew a few people that, or I'd seen a few people post about it. But I also had heard one of my buddies talk about it as well. So it's definitely something for a lot of the younger folks out there that are into crypto. And it seems like Representative Nayland is very on top of that type of stuff. And I definitely, as a member of Gen Z, appreciate that.
And with that, I think we're going to wrap up the Robin Voss special. On behalf of the New Fashion Conservatives, I'm Justin Phillips. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and drop us that 5-star. Apple Podcasts and Spotify are our two most popular players, so please take a second and give us the 5-star review there. Thank you to JS Opinions for once again joining us tonight. You can follow me on X at Justin E. Phillips, Shadow Gov at Robin_Voss_Stan. JS, where can they find you?
You can find me on X, JS Online, MKEBS, that's the tag. And I just also want to say, Robin, have a great retirement. Let me know when we need to overthrow the Wisconsin government and install you as the supreme leader. I will do whatever is necessary. And I hope you enjoy your very long vacation because you deserve it. And yeah.
Well, and Governor, Shadow Governor, thank you so much for what you've done for the state up to this point. I am very much proud to be your strongest soldier and will continue the watch. Rest easy now, brother. We have the watch.